All right. What is going on, everybody? I am exactly on time. Can you all hear me? You all hear me okay? Exactly on time. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Pretty good. Keeping up to the record so far. Or, sorry, not the record. Keeping up to the whatever I'm supposed to keep up to, right? Keeping up pretty good so far. Yeah, I really don't want to hit those 150-point penalties. I really don't want to. So it's not going to be easy getting me to... It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. Andrew says you may never be late again. It's possible. I really don't want to. I will slip up at some point. There will be something that happens at some point that makes me slip up, but I will make you guys work for it. So if you guys want to cash in your points, now might be the time. Now might be the time. Otherwise, you guys might just be perpetually waiting. How's everyone doing? I thought this was a fucking phenomenal chapter. This chapter is where Elbaf really launches, I feel. Just a heads up, I do have a little bit of maybe a bit more than a little bit. I've got a cold or something right now. A lowish fever. I'm overall fine though. But yeah, just a heads up. If you notice anything with my energy or anything at the moment, that's just all it is. Nothing crazy. I'm still good to stream. It's nothing crazy. Ground Pound. First of all, let's get the stream likes up to 50 because this chapter was so good. Ground Pound, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 14 months. The Pirate King podcast, I think, should have just gone up. I might be wrong about that. I think it should have just gone up. Let me see. Did they go up? Yeah, Pirate King podcast is up. For those of you who don't know, that's my monthly podcast. That's about an hour. This one was a little bit shorter. But normally it's about an hour and a half-ish in length. Hour and a half-ish in length. It's my monthly podcast that goes up where I answer everybody's questions very, very in-depth. Sorry for Pirate King members who might have missed it this time in terms of their submissions, but the podcast is now up. And this one got into a lot more personal life questions, so that was kind of fun. Ground Pound, thanks for being a Pirate King to remember for 14 months. Super dope chapter. Great way to build up the tension in Elbaf. Still funny that these kids are 20, though. Yeah, these fucking kids. Like, grow up. They're still getting tricked by bullshit like this. Like, they're not real kids. Most of them are older than, like, the Straw Hats. What the fuck? These kids are 20, though. Yeah, the way the Giants age, I think, kind of sucks. Because, like, ideally, you would get through your early stages of life, like childhood, teen years, at a normal rate. And then you hit, I guess, from like 20s onwards, you kind of want that to be the part of your life where like everything is where you're living for an extended period of time. You know, like the next 200 years, you get to be in your 20s, 30s or whatever, and then slowly you age and fade out. The way the Giants, that shit works is probably the worst way imaginable, right? Like it takes fucking like 60 years to become 20 years old. That's ridiculous. But yeah, I really love... So tension is the big thing for me right here. What I love the most about this chapter is simply not just that Oda... I love that Oda like kicked things off on two ends. So like he kicked things off with the Gods Knights and with Loki at the same time. And both of the ways that he did... he on both ends of the spectrum, it was very dramatic. Like he... like what's happening on the Sun Realm and what's happening in the Underworld, both... he picked a very dramatic opening move for both the Gods Knights and Loki, right? Like the nightmarish figures for the Gods Knights, and then Loki raining down lightning, perfect stuff. But the big thing I really like is just that this actually has gotten some reactions out of the Straw Hats that is not them being unfazed. This is finally the Straw Hats actually being like, oh shit, what the fuck's happening? This is good. This is good. This is all I want. This is all I want. There is more tension here in this chapter than there was in, like, the first, like, 80 chapters of Onigashima, or the first 50 chapters of Onigashima. This is good. This is it. This is all I want. This is all I want. Even Egghead. I'd say Wano had more tension than Egghead, because Egghead was almost like, as much as I like Egghead, it wasn't meant to be that difficult of an arc in terms of, like, I don't think it was meant to stress the Strats out that much. So Egghead was missing this energy as well, but like 15, 16 chapters into Elbaf, and you've got the Strats like legitimately worried about something. I like that they're worried. I like that they're shaken up by what's going on here. You know, it's not just funny shit. You know. So I love that. I love that. This is perfect stuff to launch the arc. Let's get the stream likes up to 100 real quick for tension. Behenort, thanks for being a Part King tier member for 17 months. Hope you enjoy the podcast as well. Hi, Morj. Dandadan hiatus is over. I didn't know Dandadan was on hiatus. Green Yuri has an anime coming. Final Fantasy games continue to be great. Are you saying the Dandadan anime? Because the Dandadan... I don't only follow the anime. I know the anime is coming in summer. Green Yuri has an anime coming. Final Fantasy games continue to be great. Overall, I'm continuing to experience peak media in 2025, and I hope you will as well, Morj. One of my goals in 2025 is to make more time for doing enjoyable shit, like, doing enjoyable shit. For just being able to have more free time and do more, enjoy more media, movies, TV, video games, definitely other manga and anime for sure. So, yeah. I'm glad that you've got some good stuff on the horizon for yourself. I definitely want to, there's video game. I want to play Street Fighter. I want to play Elden Ring. Manga and anime, I've got a solid list. Probably the next anime I'll watch is Solo Leveling. And then manga, I might keep going with Sakamoto Days a little bit. Kingdom, Vagabond. Beyond that, movies, I have a long-ass list of movies. The next batch of... I want to watch films from Tarkovsky next. So that's my next don't know why I can't speak right now. That's the next director that I want to watch. TV, I might watch Severance. We also want to watch The Penguin. I don't know. There's a lot of things that I want to make time to make sure I'm getting to do in this year. The Final Storm, thanks to the 10. Long ago, Mr. Wolf had a delinquent. He'd wreak havoc in class and skip when he was tired. He later became one of the most dangerous criminals in the world. This student was Zoan, San Juan Wolf. Oh, shit. What the fuck? That's a fun little theory. I don't know if that's actually true. That'd be funny. San Juan Wolf is a giant, we can assume, right? I did not even think about that connection whatsoever. Do you think he was... Let's see. Mr. Wolf. Maybe San Juan Wolf's his kid, right? Maybe that's possible. I like that. Final Storm, you might be onto something right there. Let's get the stream likes up to 100 real quick. Bunfagun, thanks for the 7. Morj, do you think Ryuma defeated the dragon from the mural? The Punk Hazard dragon looks exactly like it, especially... the Nightmare version, go to hype. Okay, so I am always going to be a little bit confused about the... So we saw the dragon that Ryuma killed in the one-shot. It looks different. This dragon, of course, looks very similar to the Punk Hazard dragon, but that might just be Oda's depiction of, generic dragon depiction in One Piece. That could just be the case. Now, with that in mind, how do I say this? The Ryuma the dragon killed... So I think there's been some confusion regarding that one shot where Ryuma is a canonical figure in One Piece, but the monster's one shot sorry, there's a fly or something going around right now. I have the screen door open, which maybe I should close. This is gonna bother me. What was I saying? The Ryuma from that monster's one-shot may not be... that might not be the correct retelling of the Ryuma story. That might be an alternate version of the Ryuma story. Kind of like the other Romance Dawn versions that Oda put out as one-shots aren't the true version of Luffy. So the Ryuma in One Piece may have a slightly different lore than what we got in that one-shot. I think that's my understanding, unless that one-shot is just straight-up canon. Wampa Wreckage, thanks for the 10 and thanks for your first super ever. Morj, I know you'll get the ick from this timeout. I hate Gen Z terms. Because, I feel like we're going backwards as society. Where, Gen Z literally uses... They kind of started making baby language into slang. Which is just really, really weird. Oh, this gives me the ick. This is icky. Ooh, that's icky. What? That's like baby talk. Why is baby talk now our slang? That doesn't make any sense. I've seen some Gen Z languages I'm feeling sleepy, so they call it EP. Why do they, why do they need to act like babies? What is... I just don't understand. I don't understand it. It's just a lost generation. But I was wondering your thoughts on the speculation of Big Mom coming to Elbaf as a hype tool / comparison for Loki or the Gods Knights. And thanks for your first super ever. So... Look, I think it's totally possible that Big Mom comes to Elbaf just because there was a lot of connection between Big Mom and Elbaf. Big Mom's final words were literally, "Don't think this will be enough to kill me," or whatever. When your final words are "Don't think this is enough," and I'll be back or whatever, it does feel like Oda's leaving the door open for that villain to come back. It's kind of a weird thing to have the villain say on the way out. I don't know. NL also said it as he was heading to the moon, but NL hasn't come back. I don't know. Look, I definitely see the possibility. I just think it would just really suck for the story. I think if you're bringing Big Mom back, it would be better to bring... I think it would honestly be better to bring back both Kaido and Big Mom. Because nobody really is itching to see any more of Big Mom. I think when Big Mom and Kaido were like a duo, there was a bit more... Like, that was when Big Mom... Like, Big Mom's exciting to think of as a duo along with Kaido, if that makes sense. I don't think anyone's itching to see Big Mom just by herself again. Yeah. I don't know. Fading Phase, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member. And thanks for joining as a Pirate King tier member. Hope you enjoy the podcast, and you can, of course, get your submissions in when they start for next month's podcast at the end of this month. But yeah, thank you for the support. You've been a long-time supporter, of course. I'm pretty sure you've been a Yonko member or joined Pirate King tier before. I might be wrong. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it again. Fading Phase, thanks for the 10. Hey, Morj, hope you've been doing well. Sorry I haven't been active, just got back from a 2-week trip in Mexico, and your boy's officially engaged. Oh, congratulations. Also, did you finish Mob? I did finish Mob. Congrats, everyone. Say congrats to Fading Phase. And I've generally been good. I've just been sick this week, starting... Well, not this week, but, like, started feeling bad. Like, last couple days have not been good. So I've been sick last couple days. So I've had a bit of a cold. Just got back from a 2-week trip in Mexico. Yeah, did I finish Mob? I enjoyed Mob quite a bit. Again, I think Season 2 is where it really peaked. Season 3 was good for closing out character things. That's my only thing with Mob. My only thing with Mob is just that, like, I'm always going to think it's better for... I don't think it's good to close out your plot that early and then just spend the rest of the story closing off the character things. I think it's much better to always tie the character things together with the plot. So however you want to wrap up the character storylines and everything like that, find a way to merge that together with the plot. Because there were so many things, honestly, that took place in Season 3 that you could have actually interspersed with the events of Season 2 while still continuing the running plot line, because the plot line is sort of important at the end of the day. Like, even if it's not the main part of Mob Psycho, it's a thing that kind of like is in the background that's adding some momentum to the events of the narrative. That's good. Season 3, it felt a little bit aimless, and it was kind of just like, we'll just check off these various not check off, like, it checked off the character things well, but it felt like a sort of like, okay, like a to-do list. Like, okay, we got to do Dimple first, then we got to do the kids from the telepathy club. Then we get to Mob as the last couple episodes. I feel like a lot of that could have been integrated much more cleanly with the events of Season 2 and just intersperse those together. That's my only thing with Mob. In that Season 3, it did feel like just running through a to-do list. It ran through the to-do list well, but it felt like a little odd storytelling-wise why that was the decision. I think my enjoyment did peak in Season 2, but Season 3 had like some of my favorite moments with Dimple and Mob. Dimian Wright, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 18 months. I've seen no one talk about this, but the cover story that the Beast Pirates weren't even jailed when they were defeated, just left alone. Yeah, I think so. Which suggests basically that King and Queen did just lose straight up. Right? Because there's nothing that suggests that the Beast Pirates were in jail at this point. It is weird that they were just left alone. Because honestly speaking, like, if the Beast Pirates then wanted to mount a comeback, they could have, right? Because you're leaving Wano alone in the hand, like, they can defeat, the Beast Pirates without Kaido can still defeat the Scabbards. I mean, they lost some Scabbards over the course of the war, so they could still defeat the Scabbards. And then Yamato's kind of, I guess, the ace in the hole. But I don't think Yamato can beat all of the Beast Pirates, you know? Like, I think at the very least it would be like a really hard-fought... It's like a whole new war, right? I think it's a really hard-fought war, right? Like, King, Queen, Jack, like, even the best Scabbards only scale to about Jack, and that's in Sulong form. So it's like, they would be in some trouble, right? Like, I'm not, like, I think the Tobiropa would take most of the Scabbards. I think, you know, Jack cancels out with Inuarashi or Nekomamushi or something like that. Queen probably takes the other one. You got King versus Yamato. I take Yamato over King, but it's just like, it's still like a very close battle. Like, it's a very close war. I don't really know what's going on there. Mingo Mango, thanks for the 7. I've seen people say that Zoro is more anxious than usual about his position on the crew, especially after being called a liability in Egghead Island. Thoughts? I don't think he's anxious about his position in the crew. I don't think that that's ever been implied to be a thing. I do think that this is a case. I think that there's so this is actually something I talked about in the Pirate King podcast. This was brought up by brought up by a Pirate King member named Tofi. So right now, Oda has a route that he could choose to go to if he actually intends for this to be a thing in the arc, right? Like, because there's always setups that you could capitalize on, but that aren't so pressing that they need to be capitalized on, if that makes sense, right? So this is an example, because prior to this, right, Zoro goes with Luffy specifically to make sure that Luffy doesn't do anything too reckless, right? Zoro finds out what Luffy's doing, he assesses the information, and he pretty explicitly breaks down to Luffy that they should not be doing this, and Luffy goes ahead and does it anyway. Now, ordinarily, the way this turns out is comedy and gags, right? Like, the crew tells Luffy not to do something, Luffy goes ahead and does something pretty bullheaded and reckless and does it anyway, and it doesn't really matter, right? It's like, or if it matters, it just leads to kind of a gag situation, and it's like, what the fuck, why'd you do that, right? That's very, very common in One Piece. This is an interesting situation in that, like, we did get a full chapter between Luffy and Zoro debating the situation, with Zoro making it pretty clear that this is not a good idea, and then this chapter, Luffy doing it anyway, and this time the result is not a ha-ha, hee-hee, funny gag. The way Oda's portraying it is the entire monster trio is like, oh, fuck, what has Luffy just done? This could be legitimately really bad for Elbaf. I think one of the things that they didn't expect is that, like, they only freed one cuff, so that was them trying to be safe. But one of the things they didn't expect is that it's not even about, like, can they defeat Loki or not. Loki is such a wild card that he can just start dropping lightning on Elbaf right away, you know? And there's not much, like, it's already happened. There's nothing that they could have done to, I mean, maybe they could have stopped the lightning or something like that, but, like, they were taken off guard, whatever. Like, just, they don't know enough about Loki's powers, they don't know enough about what he can do or his intentions, and if he just wants to set fire to all of Elbaf, even if they beat Loki after that, they've still fucked up the whole island, right? So the reactions of this chapter are very interesting, because what's just happened is a legitimately, potentially, very dangerous scenario. So now we have to see the fallout. If things keep spiraling, and Loki keeps causing more problems for Elbaf and kind of sets the whole island ablaze, or it's like, legitimately turns into a really bad situation that endangers the lives of their giant friends or even other members of the crew, right? Because, again, Loki's ability is very widespread and very ranged. Then, in that case, I think the potential is definitely there for this to turn into a sort of intra-crew discussion or, like, point of contention in terms of, like, Zoro said not to do this, and Luffy did it anyway, and this time Luffy went too far, right? Because all the Straw Hats have their silly gags and everything like that. Like, Zoro gets lost all the time, even though everyone tells him to rein it in. The thing is, with Zoro getting lost all the time, the result is never that bad. It's always a gag, right? It's always some sort of a joke, right? Whenever Oda wants to take one of the Straw Hats' gags and then turn it into something potentially serious, like the fact that Usopp's a coward or whatever, like the fact that Usopp's a coward or he's not capable in combat or that he's weak, etc., that finally stopped being like a bit of a joke and became a serious point of discussion and contention, and like his own insecurities and his own poor self-worth, that became a serious point of contention in Water 7 and East Lobby, and that led to some great intra-crew dynamics. So here, like, the running gag throughout the story has been Luffy is reckless, Luffy does whatever he wants, yada, yada, yada. And usually it's just like it doesn't result in anything that crazy, or the crew just deals with it and it's fine. The fact that Oda spent so much time before this, like a whole chapter dedicated to saying, Luffy, you shouldn't do this in a way that's somewhat serious, and then Luffy did it anyway, and then the results are actually potentially really, really bad for the entire island, that could lead to some sort of argument, discussion, maybe place for growth. And the last thing that I'd add, this is actually getting me excited, maybe I would do a video on this. Last thing I'd add is that what's really interesting is that Who did we meet right before this? Right before this, we met Scopper Gaban, who basically shared with us identical scenarios, but with him and Rayleigh trying to talk Roger down from very reckless actions, right? And Scopper never quite explained, like, in what cases was Roger right, in what cases was Roger wrong, yada yada. But maybe it's something that does need to be addressed here, because, like, we have a parallel scenario with Zoro basically talking Luffy down, like, yeah, you shouldn't be, this is reckless, you shouldn't just be freeing Loki. Luffy does it anyway, and the consequences are actually bad. Now, all that being said, I'm not saying that Oda has to go down this route, obviously. Like, Oda can do whatever he wants. It's entirely possible that they deal with the Loki situation just fine next chapter, and within 2 chapters, Luffy's like, see, that wasn't that bad, or whatever. And it's business as usual, right? I'm just saying, with this chapter, the potential, with this chapter and the previous chapter, the potential is now there for Oda to delve into something a little bit deeper, if he so chooses, if that's something that he imagined as the storyline for, or character writing for this arc. So I like that the potential's there. Bed, thanks for the 2. Morj, thoughts on Gunko being a spy for Dragon? No one's brought that up to me before. Because everyone was kind of just like, Gunko's a betrayer. Gunko being a spy for Dragon. Do you guys think that's a possibility? That's a cool possibility. I like that little idea. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 100, because we got about 600 people in here. Yeah, Gunko being... Yeah, I like that idea. I like that idea. That could be good. That could be good. I don't get the sense that Gunko's a spy. I feel like part of it is also I feel like Gunko's a character that is likely to be defeated in this arc. I like the idea of a Gunko and Bonnie matchup. I really like the idea of Gunko's selling out Ginny. I do like the idea of Gunko being a former... I think I'm already on the train of Gunko was a former revolutionary and something happened. So the 2 routes are either betrayed the revolutionaries to legitimately become Celestial Dragon, or she's a spy. I don't think Dragon is competent enough to have spies in the Celestial Dragons organization. So maybe the bad surprises me, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is... I wouldn't be surprised if Gunko's not a spy and legitimately just sold out the revolutionaries. Maybe Gunko is just, like, totally on board with the revolutionaries' plan to, like, overthrow the Celestial Dragons for years and years. And then at some point she just realized that her leader is just some dude who's always looking east. And then she was like, fuck it, I'm done with this shit. We're never going to overthrow the world regime. May as well join it. Maybe she got a look at Dragon's clipboard, and it just said, look east. And she was like, all right, I'm done. This is like, what is this Darvin Ham-ass shit? Angel Rise, thanks for the 5. Usopp is going to fight Summers and overcome the Fear Fruit. I wonder if the other Strats will be affected by his power too. Okay, so am I fucking crazy? I thought it's fucking killing him whose fruit it is. Am I wrong? I thought it was killing him. Let me read this shit again. My interpretation was that it was killing him whose fruit it was, but maybe I'm completely confused. That's embarrassing because I already recorded the chapter review. Let's read this shit. Because killing him says, alright, that should do it. No, it says good work killing him. Right? Is it not killing him? I thought it's killing him. I do think that a potential fight between Usopp and Killingham would be really good. Perfect setup for Usopp to face his fears. I know people have been complaining that Usopp hasn't done jack shit this arc, but if anything, I think it's like the build-up to Usopp's story. Like the fact that Oda's saving the setup for Usopp's storyline for last is best, because I feel like narratively you want to set up, like you want to get to the most important one. Like it's kind of like in Water 7, right? Usopp's falling out with the crew was the final thing that happened. Like the Frankie family. That was like kind of the final thing. Like everything else was pieces. Like we get there and it's like, okay, problems with going Merry. Okay, problems with Robin. And then finally we get to like Usopp's situation, right? So it's kind of a sort of escalating. And like Usopp's situation is when we kind of hit like, oh shit, the crew's really falling apart, right? So I think that getting little bits of setup, like, okay, take care of Robin and Saul, get Frankie interested in the Atom Tree or whatever. If there's some Luffy Zoro dynamic happening, set that up. Maybe Luffy Zoro, like Sanji or whatever, set that up. And then get to whatever the big shit is with Usopp. I think that makes the most sense to me. Ravenhill, thanks for the 10. I know it's weird, but what a theory that Dragon had male and female reproductive organs from Eva and he gave birth to Luffy himself. I know it can't be because Eva didn't know he had a son. Ravenhill, that is a weird theory. Even if Dragon had his own... This is just... First of all, if Dragon did that, then that would be asexual reproduction. And from my knowledge of biology, my recollection of biology, in that case, Luffy should essentially look like an exact clone of Dragon, which Luffy is not. Look like and act like, look like and at least have the behavioral tendencies of Dragon, which is not the case, right? So I don't get the sense that that is true. Beyond that, I don't really know. I can't really imagine the scenario you're talking about, so I'm going to just not imagine that. Yeah, let's get the stream likes up to 100 so we can move past that. But thank you for the suggestion. Rever Siak, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for a month. Prediction: Shanks has a teleportation technique as well, and will have to come to Elbaf now that the God's Knights are attacking. So you're saying Shanks is like the get out of jail free card? I feel like the Straws should be able to handle business here. I mean, they're a whole grown ass Yonko crew themselves, right? They're a whole grown ass Yonko. I mean, I guess they're also occupied with Loki, so it's complicated. I feel like with Shanks, him being a get out of jail free card right here just feels a little early to me. I still think so. The way I'm viewing it right now is I feel like there's a bit of progression, right, in terms of like the hype fighter reveals that Oda's doing here, in that we started with Scopper Gaban. Like, there were a few legends that we a few super powerful new characters that we knew are being teased in Elbaf, right? So first is like, who's this mystery dude who's been waiting on the shore? That was like the guy Shanks was said he saw, and like Ripley's husband, etc. How strong is Loki? What can Loki do? And finally, Shamrock. How strong is Shamrock? What can Shamrock do? I feel like Oda's going in a bit of a escalating series of reveals where, like, first we got to see Scopper Gaban debut and do his stuff against Luffy and Zoro, and that was like a nice little warm-up chapter. Now it's Loki's turn, and we're gonna get to really see what Loki can do along with the rest of the God's Knights. And then I think Shamrock is probably being saved for last for some big battle debuts. So I'm feeling like Shamrock might be the strongest on the island now, just because he's being saved for even after Loki, right? You kind of want to save the real kicker, the biggest main event for last, I would imagine, right? So Shamrock being saved for last, I imagine he comes last. I feel like if Shanks arrives now, it would kind of steal some thunder. And I think this is a moment where you're wanting to hype up Loki and the God's Knights and Shamrock quite a bit. I don't think we need additional Shanks shit at the moment. If Shanks is to come in later in the arc, that might be nice. But, you know, I mean, I'm always going to be happy to see, like, Shanks, it's always cool when he arrives and does shit, but I don't know if we're at that stage yet. I would rather let the other guys shine, and I think it adds to the sense of tension that they can't just rely on Shanks showing up and saving their ass again. I also don't think it would be good for Shanks to have to arrive and save Luffy's ass for, like, the umpteenth time in the story. It's kind of like nothing has changed since childhood, like saving him from fucking Higuma and Sea Kings back then, and then saving him from Marineford again, like Akainu and all those guys. And then he didn't have to save him in Wano. That's a good thing. Like, Green Bull could have taken, Luffy and the Monster Trio and Jinbei, they could have taken care of business. It was implied that they would have been just fine, even if Green Bull kept going, right? It was implied that they would have been just fine. So Shanks didn't have to save Luffy right then. I think he just saved Luffy a headache in terms of, like, they're having a party. You know, it's nice that Luffy didn't have to deal with that shit at the end of the day, but Shanks didn't save Luffy necessarily, right? In this scenario, it's one of two ways, right? If things are getting so bad that Shanks has to show up and save the day, I don't think that's a good way for Shanks to reunite with Luffy. If, on the flip side, the situation isn't even that bad and, like, the Strats have it under control and it's perfectly fine, and then Shanks shows up to clear out, to help clear stuff out, then I just find the whole situation less dramatic, because it means that the situation doesn't become that pressing for the Straw Hats, and it's just not even that dramatic of a debut for Shanks if he's just helping the Straw Hats do something that they're already doing. That's my feeling right now. Now Show, thanks to the 10. Reading Show, so it's kind of cool to think Rayleigh could have been a gladiator since he sells himself into slavery to settle his debts. Oh shit, what happened to the stream? Sorry, give me a second, let me finish reading that. It just disappeared for a second for me. Rayleigh sells himself into slavery to settle his debts. Also, Loki's hammer tells God Enno to send lightning, calling it now. Oh, you think it's like Loki's tied to Enno or something? I think it's just a hammer that ate the storm fruit or something at some point. I think that's it. Rayleigh could have been a gladiator since he sells himself into... I guess, but Rayleigh would have been. I don't think Rayleigh was ever a gladiator like that because we know that Kyros had like an undefeated record, and if Rayleigh ever showed up into that arena, that would not would never have been an undefeated record. Although maybe Rayleigh showed up in the time span that Kyros was a toy, so that's possible. Akash Panda, thanks for the 5, and yeah, thanks. So we got 2 here. Straw Hat fears based on the reactions over the course of the story. Luffy losing crew. So this is actually, funnily enough, this is going to be the stream that we're talking about on Monday, but let's get into it a little bit right here. Luffy losing his crew, Sanji turning Germa, Nami, Straw Hats fighting each other. That's an interesting one. I didn't think about that for Nami. Usopp, Sugar erasing Straw Hats. I don't know about that. I think for Usopp, it'll be something... I think it would be a little bit repetitive if for a lot of the Straw Hats, it's just losing each other. So I think that would be cool for Luffy, that being his fear. For Usopp, I would like to be something more personal, like, back in Water 7, his big fear was not being able to keep up with the rest of the Straw Hats. I'm not saying that should be his fear now, but something more to him and his sense of self-worth. Frankie, the Sunny / Shogun hurting the Straw Hats. Oh, that's an interesting one. Robin and Brook being alone. Robin being alone is a good one. Don't know about Chopper, Zoro, Jinbei, though. Chopper has a lot of fears, so we'd have to kind of dissect. Zoro and Jinbei are interesting to think of, though. Yeah, that's interesting. We'll talk about that on Monday. Jorge Francesca, what do you think of the idea of Blackbeard obtains Pluton from under Wano and in the process frees Kaido and Big Mom, then recruits them rock style? So somebody has mentioned this in a previous... previously. The idea of Kaido and Big Mom being released again is just so overwhelming and, like, game-changing that it's difficult for me to imagine. Because I think that Doflamingo was pretty much the last main story villain that we defeated who could be brought back into the narrative without really changing much. Like, at this point in time, Doflamingo's not cracking a top 30 in One Piece. He's not cracking a top 30. Like, if we really wanted to get into it, it's possible he doesn't crack a top 50 in One Piece characters. It depends on how you... I think Doflamingo's a tricky character to scale just because he was fairly handicapped in his final showdown with Luffy and Law, but at the same time, even just from Luffy's next matchup against Cracker, it did suggest that Doflamingo may never have been quite as strong as initially we thought. It's complicated. Doflamingo's a hard one to place, I would say. But yeah, Doflamingo, I don't know I'm going that in-depth into it, but like, Doflamingo is kind of that last big dude that could be defeated, and now he can still remain a force in the story and doesn't change much. Like, even Katakuri, who is clearly stronger than Doflamingo, Katakuri can sail around with the rest of the Big Mom pirates underneath his command. It still is not going to move the needle that much in terms of the larger geopolitical conflicts of the world, right? Kaido and Big Mom coming back is just such an absurd impact on the story, right? Like, Kaido and Big Mom, I think they're both stronger than Blackbeard is right now, right? Kaido and Big Mom scale to about each other, right? They fought each other for full day and night, perfectly equal. I don't think Blackbeard is as strong as either of them right now. Blackbeard just releasing both of them is just kind of ludicrous in my mind because I'm like, dude, they will kill you. They'll kill you. It's not a good idea, man. They will kill you. Yeah, I don't know. Kaido and Big Mom being released. I don't know about that. That's a tricky one. It just feels like they might be too impactful story-wise, like, to just bring back just like that. At the same time, it's not confirmed that they're dead. I'm just like, if they're brought back, then who even fights them? Who defeats them? Like, where are they going in the story? Like, do they work? If they work with Blackbeard, I don't think they'd work with somebody who they view as beneath them, and I don't think either of them look up to Blackbeard in any sense. They probably look down on him. Like, what is... I just don't know the route that it would fucking go. Like, who are their matchups? Like, before it fucking took teamwork. Like, as the story goes, obviously stronger characters improve and everything like that, but it's still going to be like a headache and a half trying to defeat either one. Like, Kaido took a lot of effort over a sustained period of time to defeat him. And then Big Mom, again, you guys know, from any objective perspective, they never even defeated her. We never even saw what it looks like to see Big Mom defeated. It took random TNT lying around, like random 10,000 tons of TNT lying around to defeat her. Oda didn't even think of an actual method of like characters defeating her. So like, it's not just that they're strong characters. they're very, very tanky characters. So it's like, I don't even know what 1v1 matchups you would have again in the future to knock them out of the game again. Unless Oda wants to use them as like hype tools for like Shanks or Dragon, but I doubt Oda would do that. And then if you want to do a team effort, then that's just such another pain in the ass again. I just don't know. I don't know. I think it would be hype. I think it would be exciting. I'm not saying no to it. I think it would be hype and exciting to see. I just don't know what is done with them. Maybe a fucking rematch with like Yamato, but now stronger. And maybe the Big Mom Pirates fight Big Mom or something like that. Maybe that's a fun thing to happen. And then maybe like Yamato and a stronger version of Momonosuke, a little bit trained up, and like some of the scabbards get a run back against Kaido. I don't know. I'm just spitballing, but I don't know. I kind of want to throw a poll to you guys. Do you think Kaido and Big Mom are coming back? Okay. Do you... I've done this poll before, but my mind changes a lot, so I wonder if your guys' mind changes a lot. So it's just a yes or no. I don't want to get too in the weeds in terms of percentages. Anime Dimension, thanks for the 10. Part 1. Vegapunk said that his idea for Punk Records was to allow everyone to sink their knowledge into it and share information. His brain would act as the central point of or command center. Part 2. If the same concept was used during the Void Century, someone with the memory fruit could have wiped the memories of that era. Holy shit! Anime Dimension, phenomenal point. Part 3, however, there may have been people who didn't fully share their memories, leaving behind remnants of Void Century knowledge. Anime Dimension. That is a phenomenal point, because as you guys know, I dropped a video talking about how there must have been some level of memory wipe during the Void Century. It just does not make sense otherwise, especially now with the knowledge that even the Giants of Elbaf view it as a Void Century. It's like, why the fuck don't you guys know? For you guys, that'd be like not fucking knowing, like, the Civil War. It's not that fucking far back, you know? Like, it's just like, we don't know what happened exactly, but, like, there was a war that lasted some decades, and then what do you know after that? Like, slavery was over. It's like, no, you guys should know. It's not that fucking far back for you guys. So, with the Void Century, yeah, it's just, something must have happened that's like supernatural in concept. The fact that there's the memory fruit, but the memory fruit, even awakened, I imagine, is not enough to wipe the world's memories. So another mechanism like that's a brilliant idea. And we know that technology was much higher back in the days of the Ancient Kingdom. So all of that stuff is very possible. So great points, Anime Dimension. Thank you. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 150 real quick. All right, so Kaido and Big Mom coming back. That's actually pretty close to a 50-50 split. Here, let me do a different version of that poll for you guys, okay? So let me do a different version of the poll. Kaido and Big Mom coming back. Both come back. Only Big Mom. Only Kaido. Neither come back. All right, here we go. Oh, part 4. I'm sorry, Anime Dimension. I missed part 4. And thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for so long, man. Thank you. I always appreciate the comments, man. They're always very insightful. Part 4. Places like Wano, Fishman Island, and Zunisha could be examples of locations where such remnants still exist. Erasing memories around the world using this method sounds feasible. Yeah, I definitely think that you're potentially onto something there. There has to be a memory wipe, and I think Egghead Island could have given us the clues as to how a sort of global memory wipe could have taken place. Also, if a lot of like information at that point in time was kind of like the internet, so not in document form, that could also help explain some of that. PenPal1058, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for so long, for 28 months. I hope you enjoyed the latest podcast, Pirate King podcast. If you've not, then definitely go check it out. If I want to start streaming /YouTube, content would be gaming, but I want to stream chapters 2, One Piece, etc. Should these be kept separate? I know creators like Roger's Base exist, wondering your opinion. So I think you want to look at basically what are, like, there are things that used to work in the past that are not going to be the case today. So even if some creators like Roger's Base have been able to diversify, there's other creators, like even in the One Piece sphere, you might have noticed that they attempt to diversify their channels to some degree, but then their most successful videos are ultimately going to be sticking to One Piece and just continually feeding the YouTube algorithm that, and it's good to make alternative channels to cover alternative stuff. Especially if you're just starting out, you want to be a gaming channel, then be a gaming channel. If you want to be a One Piece channel, then be a One Piece channel. I would argue that, like, if you wanted to expand a little bit and cover, like, a few series, so, like, a few anime manga or something, and, like, from launch be a variety anime manga channel, that can still work as well, as long as, like, you have a really good plan for it. So either you're covering, as long as you're giving people a consistent type of content, so if you're doing, like, video essays for different anime and manga, as long as you're giving high-quality video essays at a regular schedule, so either once a week, once a month, once every 2 weeks, whatever your schedule is, a regular schedule. As long as you're doing it at a regular pace and producing a similar type of content, even if it's covering a few different series, that will still work. Or if you want to do chapter reviews, but you do chapter reviews for several different series, as long as you're doing a consistent format, consistent release schedule, that will work over time as long as you stick to it and do good quality. Good quality will win out in the end, okay? Once you're getting to starting off with gaming and anime and manga as two different things, that's when I'd say you're going too far off the other end, and it's not going to be fruitful, especially if you're trying to get off from ground zero. That's just because it's just like, why should people keep going to you, right? They're not going to fall in love with your personality right off the bat. They might eventually, but ultimately people who are clicking on videos that have like 100 views, 50 views or something like that, like videos that are really at the very bottom, that's stuff that you need to be giving like some good ass content that's really consistent, and they're only going to subscribe if they're going to keep getting that type of content. They're not going to be like, okay, I really like this guy's insights into, I don't know, this game, Black Myth Wukong or something like that. I really liked, or his gameplay or something from that. And then next week it's like, okay, he's dropping a chapter review on like Black Clover or something. It's like, I don't even know what Black Clover is. Like, why am I subscribed? Like, you need to give that, you need to hook them with something. Like, you're promising that you're gonna continue giving them something, and they like that something enough that they want to be subscribed and be notified whenever this thing is coming out. Otherworlds JT, thanks for the 5. Think the Elbaf legendary Devil Fruit is human model Surtur. He's usually associated with Ragnarok, I believe. I don't think so. I think even just a simple fact that Surtur doesn't even pop up among their fears is a big giveaway that I think Surtur is just trying to... I personally think Surtur is just trying to put square peg round hole, in that, like, it's taking what we know of Norse mythology and just trying to apply it to One Piece. Like, the reality is that Norse mythology in our world is not the same as the mythology that the Elbaf giants believe in. The Oda's drawing some little parallels here, but like the simple fact that Loki is a character in Elbaf and not a Norse god in Elbaf means that Norse mythology doesn't exist. Oda's doing some little callbacks, like Fenrir and Loki using this hammer and everything like that, but there's no, as far as we know, there's no hint that there's some Surtur god that they believe in. If anything, I think what Loki's fruit is, that's next week's video, watch out for that, but I think that Oda's been teasing it pretty blatantly for some time now. So, yeah, just watch out for next week's video. Yeah. Tom, thanks for the 5. My girlfriend cheated on me and broke up with me over text. She blocked me and refuses to call. I wanted to marry her. Thank you for the stream to cheer me up. I am so sorry, Tom. Holy shit. What the fuck? I am really sorry, man. That's fucked up. What the fuck? She broke up with you over text? My girlfriend said, what a bitch. I'm sorry. She blocked me and refuses to call. I wanted to marry her. Listen, man, I would say this. I'm really sorry that that happened, but that is in many ways the best thing that could have happened for you. Because that reveals to you her character, and you were just going to have to find out one way or another. It's better that you found out right now before you took any sort of steps like that. So it's good for you. I'm sorry it's not good for you in the moment, and it's going to feel like shit for a while. I'm really sorry, man. But in the long run, this was the best thing that could have happened. And my guess is probably, if you really think back about it over time, you could have probably seen it coming, right? Like, this isn't just something that happens out of the blue, right? Like, people don't just switch who they are overnight. So I'm sorry that happened, but like, this probably confirmed something for you that otherwise you may have just looked the other way about or imagined wasn't part of her personality for a long time. So I'm sorry, man. Yeah, bullet dodged is what everyone's saying. Metra, thanks for the 5. Morj, save me from brain damage. Why the hell did they lock up Loki with his super weapon? The more I think about it, the more it hurts. Any ideas? It's the same reason that they locked up Odin with his swords. which is we don't have an answer. I don't know, man. I don't know. Why did they lock up Loki with that? I don't know. That's a great question. You're actually the first person to ask that. So I don't have a good answer for you. I didn't even think about it. Part of it's just like, it's cool that Loki just wakes up and pulls out this weapon. It's so cool. I guess I didn't think about how stupid it was. But yeah. Let's get the stream likes up to 150 real quick. Let's get the stream likes up to 150. Akash Panda, thanks for the 5. The way Usopp talks about how he felt when Robin was erased suggests to me that he has severe trauma from forgetting Robin. Even awakened color of observation from that. I guess, but that's like maybe some writers would play with that, but I don't know if that's like an Oda type thing. Oda goes into things like PTSD and stuff in certain extreme cases. Like, for example, Robin still felt PTSD when she heard the voices of the Gorosei, right? Even like in Egghead Island. I don't know if we have enough yet to go off to say that Oda's trying to write some consistent sort of trauma for Usopp from that whole scenario. I don't know. It's possible. Let's see. Hoops, thanks for the 5. Will Loki set the Atom Tree on fire and burn down Elbaf? Seems like the story is hinted that way. I do think from other things people have said, so for example, Akash Panda, I believe, was the one who brought this up. I do think that maybe by the end of the Elbaf arc, the Atom Tree may have collapsed, and we might be in a whole new world where, you know, the final war is kicking off, and, final war is kicking off, and Elbaf stops being a safe space, right? I do think that's possible at the end of the arc. I don't know if that's going to happen just yet. So my personal feeling is that, like, there's two ways that this can go down, and I think that that's something that I talk about in the chapter review as well. There's two ways that this goes down. Either this was sort of like a big, like, this is sort of the kicking off the midpoint of the arc, I guess, where, like, something really, really bad happens that has an effect on the characters and the setting and everything like that. That's negative, and then the Gods Knights are how do you say, like, fended off for the moment, but maybe they'll get away with some hostages, who knows? So that could be number one. And then there's like a middle point of the arc with like the Strides maybe having to train or get through their character stuff or whatever and rebuild, and then the Gods Knights come back for the showdown. So it's kind of like a two, like, this is first big event, intermission, breather, character writing stuff, and then second big event, aka climax. Either we're following that sort of structure, or this is it. We just hit the climax of the arc. Like, from here on out, it's just a non-stop battle. I personally think, my prediction is Elbaf goes 1,200 chapters. I personally think, or not 1,200 chapters, sorry, to chapter 1,200. I personally feel like we will conclude Elbaf around chapter 1,200. I think we've still got a good, almost 60 chapters to go, right? So I think that this is kind of big, heavy midpoint of the arc, and then from here, there's going to be a bit of a space in between, and then we're going to be rounding things out with the final battle, the climax, okay? That's my feeling for the arc. I might be wrong. I think it's too early to delve into an extended battle. Keep in mind, even the Battle of Onigashima, which was, like, so much build-up in the making, so much build-up, so much preparation, that battle lasted, I think, from 990 to 1050. So that battle was 60 chapters, right? I think we're a little too early for a really extended climax here in Elbaf. I think we're a little bit too early. So I think this is going to be a heavy point. I think things are going to look bad for a little bit. I think there's going to be some regrouping, some character work, etc. And then we get a climax later. That's my feelings right now for Elbaf. That's my feelings right now. Still have to wait and see how things play out. So I do think at the end, sorry, to answer your question, I do think at the end, the Atom Tree may be burned down over the course of the final battle. But I feel like in this moment, I think the Atom Tree will be in danger of burning down, but I don't think the whole thing is just going to go to shit just yet. Las Experiencias Sonoras del Tío Puchillo. What a phenomenal name. I hope it doesn't mean something like dirty in Spanish, and I just said that without knowing, but we'll just see. The only answer for me regarding Big Mom and Kaido is that they come back at some point with Pluton itself and Luffy kind of fodderizing them, not as a clue how or when though. Oh, Luffy fodderizing them would be pretty cool. Okay, so I'm actually checking the poll now. I forgot to check the poll. So, interesting. So, if you add everything together, over 50% of people believe that Big Mom's coming back. God damn it. Over 50% of people believe Big Mom's coming back. If you add things together, about almost 40% of people believe that Kaido's coming back. Yeah, so the majority of people believe that at least one or the other is coming back. If it's fucking Big Mom, I'm just like, why? What does Oda think he's doing with this character? Does he think it's good? I just don't fucking get it. I don't know. It's just like... Again, to me, Big Mom peaked at the end of the Tea Party. No. Big Mom peaked. Whole Cake was really good Big Mom stuff up until they left Whole Cake Island itself. Once Big Mom began because like at the point that they reached while Big Mom was chasing them even through Whole Cake Island, that was like peak terrifying Big Mom actually. The chapters where Big Mom was actually like running through the forest and launching like launching her cannon attacks, right? Her Elbaf cannons basically at the crew. Like that was absurd. And it was just like Luffy, you got Luffy, Jinbei just in absolute shock. Like they don't know what the fuck to do. The Straughts are just fucking running the fuck out of there. And it kind of feels like there's literally like Godzilla just chasing the crew and there's no hope of them actually trying to fight her or stop her. Like they bury her underground and she just walks through the earth to get to them. Like that was like the whole stretch from like getting her flashback where we see what a natural born destroyer she was, fucking up the Elbaf giants at age 5, getting a 500 million bounty at age 10, eating Mother Carmel, all of that leading to her scream just destroying the entire plan, her fucking up Capone Beja's fortress, like, and then the whole chase through the woods and everything like that, where it's just a natural calamity that's chasing them. That was like cool Big Mom shit, right? It's once she started pursuing them across the ocean that her stocks just plummeted because she just became like this like inconvenience that they just like fended off one way or another. She did lots of bumbling, stupid things, and she was just so dumb throughout all of that. She failed to do anything by the end of the arc to any of them. No consequences for anybody. Never delivered on the sense of fear that she kind of was instilling early on. Worst cliffhanger of an arc of all time, the Whole Cake Island cliffhanger, because it was just a cheap cliffhanger that didn't actually lead to anything. So many things. And then in Wano is just like, she wakes, like, right off the bat in Wano, first thing that happens, Oda's like, amnesia. It's like, dude, what are you doing with this character? She fights with Kaido a little bit, that's cool, but then the Onigashima battle happens, and then it's like, she's the joke, but of a lot of jokes throughout that. I don't know, she gets literally rolled. The first thing she does in the Onigashima, you know the first thing Kaido does in Onigashima? He solos the scabbards. That's the first thing Kaido does. That's the first thing he does. You know the first thing Big Mom does in Onigashima? Get run over by a motorcycle by Frankie, who doesn't even notice that she's there, and then rolled off the island by mid-tier Straw Hats. And then that's literally the description of... I didn't exaggerate anything that in that sentence, by the way. That's literally what happens. She gets run over by a motorcycle, ignored by Luffy, run over by a motorcycle, and then rolled off the island by mid-tier Straw Hats. I don't know. I just don't know why Oda would want to bring that character back. Anyway, continuing on. Where are we at? Let's get the stream likes up to 200 real quick. Raven Hill, thanks for the 5. I would like more Logias. They're my favorite. What different ones would you like to see? I think just the wind one's really the last one. There was a time in the story. You guys remember when Logias were just the coolest shit ever? Because it was just like, it was a unique concept story-wise too. Because I remember when I was a kid, like younger, right? Like high school age, middle school, early high school age or whatever. You'd enjoy seeing like who's stronger, the One Piece universe or like Naruto universe characters, like One Piece versus this or that. And Logias were always kind of like the ace in the hole. Because it's kind of like this cheat code where it's like, well, how are they going to beat Kizaru? Kizaru is literally made out of light. How are they going to beat like fucking, whoever, Ace. Ace is made out of fire or whatever, right? Like, Logias were at one point such a cool, unique, like anytime a Logia fruit was introduced in One Piece, it was just like, ah, shit, this bullshit again. It's like, we literally cannot touch this guy. Like, we cannot physically do anything to this character. It was just such a unique problem that was posed for the heroes, like literally untouchable opponents. And then along with that, they had crazy powerful like AoE effect-based abilities, which was really, really strong in One Piece, because for a long time, like One Piece, Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, the protagonists, they're very strong, but their abilities are all ultimately like punching and kicking and shit. Like characters that can actually like burn down, like summon giant fireballs or call down lightning or like freeze the ocean and stuff. Those are like gods compared to like Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji are ultimately like just souped up punching and kicking guys, like there's a big gap, it just felt like. So ever since Haki was so what's one thing that's very interesting to me, by the way? So the moment that Haki was introduced, and one of the big sticking points about Haki that really stood out to us was like, okay, this solves the Logia problem. And one thing that I always thought was very interesting is that, and that was one of Luffy's big interest points in terms of learning Haki, is like, oh, so I can even touch Logia users. That's like a very inquisitive question from someone like Luffy, right? Like, it shows that he's been fucking thinking about this issue for some time, and he doesn't like that there's characters out there that he can't hit, right? So, coming out of the time skip, one thing that Oda was doing is that, like, right off the bat in Fishman Island, he establishes that Logia, who think that they're invincible, get fucked up in the New World, right? And then the next arc, which is Punk Hazard, Oda kind of like goes through and kind of shows that with Haki, Logia users can get fucked up. So he kind of just did like a little bit of a hat trick with Logia users in, not Egghead, Punk Hazard. He did a bit of a hat trick in Punk Hazard with Logia users in that Smoker, Monet, Caesar, right? 3 Logia users in a row, all of them get fucked up, right? Like, that's not a thing pre-time skip, but he made it basically, Oda kind of made it commonplace, or just accepted that, like, okay, being a Logia is no longer a big deal. Smoker, who was basically like a nightmare matchup for Luffy pre-time skip, the first thing that's happening to Smoker in our post-time skip debut of him is that he gets fucked up 3 times. He gets passed around. Law, Virgo, and then Doflamingo for no real reason at the end. They just all just take turns with Smoker. And it's just like, okay, so Haki is basically forced Smoker to actually have to learn to fight, essentially like a normal dude. It's negated that advantage. Monet, same thing, right? Like, Haki is now a problem. Somebody like her would be impossible to deal with pre-time skip, but now she's not an issue anymore, right? Caesar, right? Like, I just thought it was interesting that right off the bat, Oda made sure, first thing that we're seeing in the New World is that being a Logia in and of itself doesn't mean that much on its own, right? And so since then, like, I don't think Logia user debuts have been as exciting. Like, we found out Green Bull's a plant user, but that doesn't mean that much to us anymore, right? Logias are still powerful, but now it's more so in terms of, like, the firepower that they have. So, like, it's still cool that Akainu has magma abilities, right? Like, that's still a big deal. But I'm just saying there was pre-time skip, a Logia was the most exciting and unique thing that you could be. I would say post-time skip, it's really shifted to Zoans, which is surprising because pre-time skip, it was the reverse. It was like, Logia is the most interesting and unique, right? Because it seems the most powerful. Then Paramecius, it's like a wide variety of things it can be. And Zoan, it's just like, okay, you can turn into a dog, right? Now, post-time skip, it's like, Paramecia, like, Logia is still cool and unique. Paramecia, you still get probably the widest range of what it can be. But then with Zoans, it's like, okay, if someone's a Zoan, at this point in the story, if it's a mythical Zoan, now you can be like some sort of crazy type ability that's just way out of left field, that's something much, much more unique and game-changing than anything else, right? I think now mythical Zoans are really what get us the most hyped. I think because mythical Zoans are like, they tend to combine a lot of abilities in one. I know I'm going off on a long tangent about on this, but like, I think a lot of the most unique powers are mythical Zoans, and like, they do so much. Like, they give a stats boost, and like, you just look at it like Kaido, right? You get a stats boost, and you're getting like fire powers, and wind powers, and lightning powers, and like clouds and shit like that, and like magma forms and stuff like that. Like, mythical Zoans are such a big package. Luffy's obviously goes without saying. The Gorosei, they all come with like multiple, like Warcury has like, you get super tough defense, but then also you get fire abilities. Venus Jura, you get super speed, but you're also getting ice abilities. Like, mythical Zoans just tend to come with like a a pretty large package of abilities. So I think that's why Mythical Zoans have replaced Logias as the most exciting ability. Anyway, that's just my perspective thing. I don't know if people feel the same. Anyway, continuing on. Jorge Fonseca, thanks a lot for the 5. To expand what I mean, I think Blackbeard will be post-world government, but his top commanders are too chumpy for endgame fights. For wings, also putting in Sanji. I agree with what you're saying there, because I don't feel like Shiryu makes for a great endgame fight for Zoro. And I don't know who I think it sucks that we don't... I think it says something in and of itself that we can't tell from Blackbeard's crew who makes a good matchup for Sanji. I think that in and of itself says that there's something just inherently underwhelming about a lot of Blackbeard's subordinates. But I have a really big video coming down the line that explains what I actually think Blackbeard's crew will look like towards the end, and what I think the actual matchups in the end game are set to look like for the Strats versus the Blackbeard Pirates, because I think it's different than what we've been seeing so far. The Kaido Big Mom possibility, it's fun and interesting because it does introduce, if you want to have fun with it and you want to speculate, I'd throw this out. Maybe a little possibility because Kaido is kind of there was connections between Zoro and Kaido at the end of the day, and Zoro did get some stuff in against Kaido. He just didn't get to go all the way with it, right? That was Luffy's job. Maybe we get a Zoro versus Kaido type thing, and then maybe we get Sanji versus Big Mom. At the same time, you would say Sanji never fights a woman. It's well, maybe that would be a thing at the end of the story where I think that'd be too bad. I don't think that'd be good for his character though. But Big Mom was the primary villain in Sanji's arc, which was Whole Cake Island. There was a lot of dynamics between Sanji and Big Mom at the end of the day. So maybe in some really indirect way Sanji takes... It would be really cool if Sanji manages to beat Big Mom without actually kicking her once. That would be one of the coolest things that Sanji could do. Imagine that. Anyway, that's super fantasy hypothetical. I don't think that's actually going to happen, though. I don't think we're getting Zoro and Sanji versus Kaido and Big Mom at the end of the story. I do believe that we do have some clear ideas of who the Strats will actually be fighting when it comes to Blackbeard's crew. But I don't know. Yeah, people are saying Lafitte as Blackbeard's the Blackbeard pirate who Sanji will fight. Here's my thing. I feel like the only reason we're saying Lafitte is because we've kind of run the gamut of other Blackbeard pirates and kind of seen okay, show me what you can do. Okay, next. Okay, show me what you can do. Okay, next. Okay, next. Okay, none of these are a fucking good opponent for Sanji. Okay, maybe it's fucking Lafitte because Lafitte at least hasn't been shown to suck so far. It's kind of just by order of not having shitty the simple order of elimination of having shitty showings. It's kind of defaults to Lafitte. You guys got to remember, and people might be no, but pre-time skip he snuck into Morj, and that's phenomenal. That's true, but that's something that's been hyped up. I've noticed more. I've been in the community a long time. That's something that's been hyped up much more in recent times. Because it's almost like people are looking for Sanji's opponent, so it's kind of circling back to okay, well, Lafitte hasn't looked bad yet, so maybe Lafitte's that dude, right? Before this, for all of pre-time skip, you would Lafitte fighting Sanji wasn't a thing that was discussed back then. When Blackbeard got his Impel Down crewmates, I don't think anybody was saying that people figured out that Shiryu's probably Zoro's opponent. There were years and years where nobody was saying jack shit about Lafitte being Sanji's opponent. If anything, a lot of people are saying that Brook would be Lafitte's opponent because of just visual similarities. Brook is also very stealthy and fast. The similarity with the cane and everything like that. A lot, even just the fact that Lafitte seems like a very morbid character, and Brook falls into that line. If you just go back through historically, people generally talked about Brook versus Lafitte. There was even some Nami versus Lafitte talks because Navigator. Sanji versus Lafitte, I've noticed that's a discussion that's become a lot more prominent recently, and people have kind of circled back to Lafitte sneaking into Morj and kind of hyping that up more now. Sanji versus Lafitte has become a lot more prominent of a discussion recently because we finally got to see what all the other Blackbeard pirates can do, and they fucking suck ass, right? Sanji fans are not going to be satisfied if Sanji's fighting fucking Avala Pizarro at the end of the story. They're not going to be satisfied if Sanji's fighting fucking Jesus Burgess at the end of the story. So it's kind of grass is greener. Maybe it was fucking Lafitte all along because we've seen these other guys and they're shit. So now we got to put our money on Lafitte. My thought process is I think that Zoro and Sanji's opponents are going to be different because I think that there is some changes for the Blackbeard Pirates that are around the corner, I would say. Does that make sense? Yeah, for a long time, people actually thought that Sanji would fight Burgess I think Burgess stocks dropped a bit post Coliseum, but there were still a lot of talks about Sanji versus Burgess. I think after the whole Law ambush where Burgess didn't do jack shit, I don't think there's many people who are saying that's going to be Sanji's final opponent. New X7 says Shiryu success. I agree Shiryu success. It's just like with that, it's hard to argue around the possibility of him fighting Zoro if the Blackbeard parts remain the same, right? Just because he's the swordsman. He's even introduced joining up with Blackbeard in a parallel scene that mirrors how Zoro joined up with Luffy. Shiryu's probably the strongest of the group outside of Aokiji, but Aokiji is a temporary fixture. Anyway, continuing on. Let's get the streamlights up to 200 real quick. I don't think either... I think in general the final matchups for the Straughts versus the Blackbeard Pirates are going to be different than what people think. I'm just going to leave that there. I'll save it for the video. I've hinted at what I'm thinking in previous videos, though. Mr. Borja Parada, thanks a lot. In Thriller Bark, Moria's shadows were released all around the world, returning freedom to his victims. Emu defeat equals stolen dreams, memories, souls, and knowledge of the past returned all around the world. That is really interesting, because literally, like, in conjunction with what you're saying with Moria's defeat, like, Moria's defeat coincided with the dawn. So that was, like, one of Oda's really early, I'd say his, like, first real depiction of, like, Luffy winning a fight at the dawn and essentially dispelling darkness and bringing, I guess... life back to the world. Like, it was literally like a battle for the dawn. So defeating Moria like that, ooh, shit. And I wonder if that's even foreshadowing in terms of stuff like nightmares and like Moria being a nightmare villain, because people have talked about like Emu potentially being able to conjure nightmares and stuff like that in like a more significant way than killing him. There might be something there. It's so tricky with Oda because he does so many things that foreshadow other things, but like in different ways, right? So, like, because Gekko Moria had a lot of foreshadowing for, like, Kaido stuff, but I'd say Oars had more foreshadowing for Kaido's. It's complicated. Anyway. But that's a great point. Great point. Grizzlybot, thanks for the 5. What nightmare creature would spawn in Elbaf if Mr. Morj was one of the sleepwalking children? I'll just be honest. The nightmare creature that would spawn in Elbaf would probably be, like, the Grim Reaper or something. Right? I would just be like, well, I think death is probably the scariest thing that I can think of. I think if I really have to think everything else in life you can kind of just deal with. Death is probably the scariest thing I could think of. So it'd probably just be a gigantic Grim Reaper if, like, my nightmare vision spawned or something like that. Does that make sense? Faraday Jack, thanks for the 5. On a real Oda twist, Loki's fruit is legit the sun fruit. So the sun fruit. He's a sun man. He turns into a sun, the sun god. Lol, what you think? Okay, I don't know if he would turn into legitimately the sun. That's an interesting idea. I will share my ideas as to... I do think that Loki having a sun-tied fruit is very, very, very likely. I'm going to save my thoughts for what I think it is for this next coming video. Also, because my editor is actually out of town, we had to get this video done in super fast turnaround time, so it's actually ready early. So I might actually release it on Sunday. I'm not sure. Might release a little bit sooner than usual just to do it. I don't know, though, because I feel like people enjoy the release date on Tuesdays, but it's also more hype to get the video out closer to the chapter. I don't know. Myriad, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 16 months, man. Hey, Morj, missed a bit of streams. Hope this wasn't covered too much already, but how do you feel about Saul using Haki? But I hope Gunko gets a bit of a fight in Elbaf. Saul using Haki makes sense because it was confirmed at some point that every Vice Admiral and up can use Haki, and Saul was a Vice Admiral. It's just that Oda didn't draw Haki visibly with black lightning and stuff like that, black sparks, pre-time skip, so this is what we get. I hope Gunko gets a bit of a fight in Elbaf. I think that a fight that we will get in Elbaf would be Bonnie versus Gunko. I'm pretty set on that train now. Mr. Borja Parada, thanks a lot. Luffy's narcolepsy summons his fear. Garp's punch. Oh, it'd be funny if Luffy imagined Garp punching him. I wonder if Luffy imagines fucking like a Kainu or something, or like I think Akash Panda mentioned Luffy imagines losing his crew, but I wonder if like, so like, you know like how Bogarts work in Harry Potter? So like a Bogart can like manifest to show a scene of what you fear. I get the sense more so that like with Killingham's abilities, it's more like it manifests like an object or entity of fear. So maybe it would be something like a Kainu. if that makes sense. Like a representation of what Luffy associates with losing someone he's close to. I don't know. Bunfagun, thanks for the 5. Can't Ragnar be like Mjolnir, where only those who are worthy can lift it? Explains why they couldn't move it from Loki. I mean, Oda would have to come up with some other explanation as to why that is then, because, like, at least with Mjolnir, it's like, well, it's just Norse spells or Norse magic, but that's not really a thing in One Piece. Like, if a weapon is special, it's usually special because of either something hockey, I guess with Enma, it's like hockey related, but ordinarily, like, this is like a devil fruit ability that makes it special, right? Like, Ragnar seems to have eaten a storm fruit or something of the like, right? Maybe it's just like, oh, maybe it's something similar to Enma where, like, anybody else that picks it up gets drained by it. I could see that being a possibility. Maybe it's too heavy for other Elbaf giants to lift it. I could see that being a possibility. Okay, so there's some stuff there. Yeah, if I had to speculate, maybe it's just too fucking heavy. Or maybe it drains hockey, kind of like Enma. Those might be possibilities. Attilio, thanks for the 5. Hi, Morj. Things are good with my girlfriend, and now that I have a hospital job, I can possibly get my TMJ fixed and jaw surgery completely covered by insurance. Hey, good shit for Attilio. Congratulations, man. I'm glad that life is going well after your series of misfortunes. So it's good. Yeah, good shit. Thanks for the update, man, as always. KGM78, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 29 months. Big Mom Kaido or both will serve to hype up Blackbeard when he defeats them while stealing Pluton from Wano. That would be kind of insane. Blackbeard defeating both Kaido and Big Mom. People got mad when I suggested, like, Roger could defeat 2 admirals at the same time. And I'm just like, it's fucking Gold Roger, man. But, Blackbeard defeating Kaido and Big Mom? I don't even know. I can't even imagine that. I don't know any character that could defeat them both at the same time. Maybe Emu or Prime Joy Boy or something like that. Maybe they're injured or something, so Blackbeard's able to defeat them. But then if they're injured, it's just inherently not as hype. Because then it's just like... Then we get into the same shit with, like, people saying that Green Bull, his fight with King and Queen doesn't count because, like, they were probably injured or not fully recovered. And then it's just like, well, aren't they fucking Zoans and Ancient Zoans recover fast and shit like that? I don't know. Party McFly, thanks for the 5. Can't watch live because I had a wedding. Oh, congrats. But how much do you think the Nika fruit affected Luffy's personality? He was so different as a kid. I do think that the Nika fruit... No, I don't think the Nika fruit affected Luffy's personality like that permanently. Because, like, you could say Luffy was different as a kid. But I think when Luffy transforms into the awakened version of his fruit, that's when his personality shifts. But I think outside of that, Luffy's Luffy. Because you're right that Luffy was somewhat different as a kid. But... what really happened is that there was a general trend of Oda writing Luffy as dumber and dumber over the course of the story. Because if you go back to early One Piece, Luffy is still very dumb, but he is not at the level that he becomes later on. Like, Luffy later on, like where we're at this point in the story, he speaks almost in just, like, pure, like, childish expressions and stuff, like... Why is this? What? No, of course it's like that. Like, it's very, very dumb. Luffy early on was, like, very dumb, but at the same time, he was, like, a little bit more... I think partly because there was fewer characters at the time. There were fewer characters at the time, and Luffy kind of had to solo carry the story a little bit in terms of dialogue for a bit. So, you couldn't have him that dumb. If you read Luffy as a kid, and then read the first several chapters of, like, East Blue, Romance Dawn arc, etc., it doesn't seem like Luffy's drastically changed as a person. It just seems like the natural continuation of who he seemed like when he was a kid. There is a... Luffy did slowly get dumber. I think he reached his normal level of dumbness that we see for the rest of the story pretty fast. But early East Blue One Piece, Luffy doesn't quite talk as stupidly as he does today. I think it just happened as Oda added more crewmates. And then once you add more crewmates, you have other characters who can... speak a bit more intelligently and things like that, and you don't need Luffy to be... You can allow Luffy to be dumber and dumber. And Oda just probably hit a rhythm in terms of comedy and the type of jokes that that he liked to get out of Luffy. Continuing on. Drink water, thanks for the 10. Oda hyped up Oden leaving a scar on Kaido so much, and Kaido saying the scar was aching. Zoro leaves a scar on Kaido, and he just died in lava, not living to tell the tale of Zoro Juro. Oh, Look, it's okay. Zoro's legend will spread, I suppose, naturally or whatever, but I do think it's a damn shame that, like, I just found a lot of the bounties post Wano to be very underwhelming. To me, it's just like, why make... I just find it more satisfying when the heroes surpass the bounties of the characters that they defeat. Like, Zoro's significantly stronger than King. Sanji's significantly stronger than Queen. I know the bounties are obviously distributed for reasons other than just strength, but it's just like, a lot of it also just comes down to fun, right? Like, it's fun to see the Straw Hats getting higher bounties, right? Like, sometimes it doesn't even make sense. Like, none of them got higher bounties post Egghead, but Dory and Brogy did. Obviously, the Luffy Lockheed situation, I complained about that to death. Yeah. Maybe Zoro's reputation would have gotten bigger if it was talked about more what he did against Kaido. Who knows? But it is what it is. There's still time for him in the story. Las experiencias sonoras del Tío Puccio. Thanks a lot. Elbaf final fight is with the Blackbeard pirates. They all lose except Blackbeard and Katarina, then steal Loki's fruit and escapes and replace crews with Seraphim. Okay. We're going to stop right there because you are now treading into video territory in terms of what I want to talk about down the line. Okay, so we're going to stop you right there. I will just say that I've been on your train, same train, we've been riding the same train for a little bit. I've got some differences in how I view it, but I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, but we are very potentially on the same train. No more of this talk. I can't share here because it's a statement that seems so outlandish at first. It makes a lot of sense if you look at like a shit ton of clues that Oda's been leaving throughout the story, and the point in the story that it makes sense for certain things to happen. I'm gonna leave it. Sworn Brothers, thanks for the 5. Ragnar is likely similar to Nami's climate staff before Zeus. Weather tech. Oh, you think it's weather technology? I don't think Elbaf's like that type of advanced nation. They're kind of pretty far behind the times. They didn't even have a school till like Saul showed up, right? Or was it a library? They didn't have a school, I think, till Saul showed up. Wait, why isn't Saul the principal of the school? Didn't Saul make the school? Am I confusing something? Put the video out, man. Come on. It's a big ass video. So it's a video because like for some theories to make any sense, you can't just talk about the singular theory itself. You have to talk about a broader range of things that seem like they're coming together that would then make this other thing make sense if that follows, right? So, for example, like the theory video in the past that really blew up my channel was like Elbaf is going to be actually very Shanks centric. It's going to be Shanks' arc, right? That video would not have made any sense to people because like at that point in time in the One Piece fandom community, the overwhelming pretty much absolute consensus was Elbaf is going to be Big Mom's arc because right then we were basically trying to escape Whole Cake Island. It was confirmed that we'll be dealing with Big Mom later, and Big Mom had so much build-up and tie-ins to the Giants, so everybody consensus was basically, okay, they're going to go to Wano, fight Kaido there, Luffy will get stronger, and then by the time he gets to Elbaf, that's where they'll meet up with Big Mom, and now Luffy will be able to take down Big Mom 1v1. The assumption was Kaido will be like a team effort, then Big Mom will be 1v1, right? So that was kind of the natural progression, and then everyone believed that Shanks' storyline would come in the storyline after Elbaf, okay? I did a video breaking down why Elbaf is likely set up to be Shanks' arc, and why Big Mom doesn't make sense being the main villain of that arc, or that being Big Mom's arc. But I couldn't go about making this whole, like, the video talking about how Elbaf is likely Shanks' arc was a very elaborate video with, like, a lot of pieces of evidence. I needed to first do a whole video breaking down why it's likely that Big Mom is not going to be saved for Elbaf, but rather Big Mom is going to join Kaido in Wano and go down in Wano first. So I had to basically, like, the whole notion of Elbaf being Shanks-centric didn't make any sense to people at the time, or would not have made any sense to people at the time, because the common knowledge or consensus was that, yeah, Big Mom is Elbaf is Big Mom's arc. So I had to first do a lot of breaking down of why, like, no, Big Mom is not going to be in like the Elbaf main center piece. Big Mom is going to be going down in Wano alongside Kaido, and then Elbaf is actually going to be for Shanks. So it's going to be kind of like a progression like that. So essentially, even if the main theory I wanted to get to was talking about Shanks and Elbaf, I had to first give a whole bunch of arguments explaining like the full picture. Like, okay, we think that this is going to happen here, and therefore Shanks happens here, but actually this is going to happen here, and therefore Shanks is going to happen here. So everything's kind of, I had to explain how the whole thing sort of rearranges. So that's why this whole Blackbeard Pirates matchups video is a very extensive one that I have to do a lot of like thought into how to structure, because it's a little bit too elaborate to, like, I can't, if I just talk about why I think the Blackbeard Pirates matchups will be the way they are, it will almost not make any sense, or it will make sense, but people have a lot of questions like, but then who's doing this, like, and who's fighting that, and then what about these matchups, and blah, 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 blah. I kind of got to break down like a much bigger picture in terms of like, I think almost everybody's main Final War matchups are kind of lining up across the board, basically, and a bigger picture is kind of starting to click together. So that's what I'm interested in talking about. I'll get to that when I feel like I can structure the whole thing. I think a good point, you can probably expect that video to come out maybe if we get a really good chapter focused on the Blackbeard Pirates, because I do generally like to, if I've got theories and stuff, I like to save them to capitalize on times when, especially if it's a theory I think is a very good one, I like to save it to capitalize on a time that I think that there is a lot of hype or interest for said theory. So right now Blackbeard's not the talk of the town, so we're not going to be doing too much stuff on Blackbeard just yet. Sworn Brothers, thanks for the 5. Ragnar is likely... No, we covered this. Kiki, thanks for the 2. Getting Phantom Troop vibes from the Gods Knights. And thanks for your first super ever. I don't think so, because I think the Phantom Troop is largely, it's a unique group because of... How do I explain? I don't think there's anything that fundamentally different yet that we've seen from the Gods Knights from something like CP9, right? The things that make the Phantom Troop interesting are kind of because they are this very they're an independent group of characters who are not bound to any other allegiance or morality other than, or like allegiance or anything like that, or responsibility other than caring for Meteor City. And what's interesting about them is essentially how like they are against the entire world, at least in their minds, and they view everybody as basically disposable or having no sort of moral value to them whatsoever, but they still care so deeply and have such high value for each other. And that's kind of what makes them, alongside being a very eclectic group of individuals, it's their unique morality and way that they travel through the world that is interesting. I don't think we've yet gotten enough out of the Gods Knights to really say, outside of like, to differentiate them from anything that we've kind of assumed a Celestial Dragon military force would be, which is just that we're Celestial Dragons, we rule the world, everyone else is beneath us because we rule them, and we will basically take what we want, and our job is to execute the missions to basically put under heel anybody who's not listening to us, right? I don't think we've gotten enough of their intra-group dynamics yet to say if there's anything particularly interesting about the way they operate. Yeah. You know, one of the reasons I think CP9 was also a pretty cool group in retrospect is because CP9 was a group that didn't have that much hierarchy. Like, their hierarchy was essentially their Dauriki, right? But they didn't technically have authority over each other. And so, like, you know, you open with a scene with, like, Jaibura and Fukuro just, like, having, like, this sort of gag fight with each other or whatever, with, like, Fukuro spilling Jaibura's secrets and everything like that. That doesn't really work with, like, the Calamities and the Tobiropo, because there is a, like, in actual villain organizations, like, the higher-up members of the group, like, have authority over the lower ones. The Tobiropo, having pushback against the Calamities, became a significant point of contention at the start of the Onigashima section of the storyline. Yeah, just generally, like, higher, like, even Baroque works, higher numbers, like Mr. 3 having authority over Mr. 5. It gets exciting when you see someone like Mr. 2 fighting against Mr. 1, even though he's not supposed to. Yeah, but the CP9, like, even from, like, that's another big thing. Luchi himself didn't have authority over anybody else in the group, even though Luchi was, like, Luffy's opponent. It's the first time that we had an opponent that was just, like a big boss who wasn't technically the boss of everybody else. And so it's not like, Enel just commanding his priests, or like Crocodile commanding Baroque Works, or Kaido commanding his crew. It was just more so like a free flow sort of like not family dynamic, because they didn't. I don't know. Like, I mean, even the post. It's one of the most heartwarming cover stories, the post CP9 cover story, where they're all trying to like do shit for Luchi's operation. CP9 was just a fun group to follow, I think, because the dynamic was so much more free flow than previous groups. I don't know. Anyway, continuing on. Plasticola, thanks for the 10. Blackbeard defeats Emu with trickery, and some Gorosei join Blackbeard, and we have the scene of Blackbeard sitting on the empty throne with one or two of the Gorosei and some Blackbeard pirates bowing to Blackbeard, like with Emu and Dofi and Enel. I don't think there's going to be Gorosei joining Blackbeard, but I do think the Blackbeard crew is going to be mixed up by the end of the story. Yeah, I think it'd be really cool if we get a scene of the Blackbeard being bowed to like the previous gods of the world. I don't know. I have some thoughts. I have some pretty extended thoughts. It'd be a pretty big video I would drop when it's time to drop. It'd be pretty big video though. Probably the biggest theory video I've done since the mural. Yeah, CP9 just had a lot of fun interactions too. Why is everyone talking about Saul? Saul carrying Vice Admiral Feats on his back? It's just. I mean, to be fair, it's a bigger snake than you would even imagine, because it's like an Elbaf-sized snake. The giant snake. Kurakami Najimi says Oda isn't the type of writer who'd have Blackbeard take out Emu. I don't think Blackbeard's taking out Emu personally. I don't think that that's happening. I do think that. I don't want to explain all my thoughts. It's just too like there's certain things that I think are very likely. So there's like a general framework of how I think a lot of the matchups of the storylines are kind of clicking together towards the end. So there's a way that certain things seem to be lining up. Things that are still up in the air are certain specific characters' importance, the order of operations of certain things, so what's going to come first. So I'm still like some things are still malleable and flexible in my head, but it would be very difficult. Like if I said something in terms of like how I think Emu's going down, I mean, I'll just say right now, I think Luffy does defeat Emu at the end of the day. I think the order in which things happen is a little bit surprising to people. Mr. 9 with a great theory. Luffy will wear Emu and defeat Blackbeard. Emu is Luffy's raid suit. Malik Dunnigan says he's probably going to take out Shanks, though, sadly enough. I do think that Blackbeard takes out Shanks. I think that's one of the few things that we can pencil in as very likely happening. There are very few things that we can say almost like concretely will happen. I do think Blackbeard taking out Shanks is one of them. Reversius says, do you think Elbaf is going to be God's Valley 2.0? My feeling is that they're severely underestimating Loki and things are going to spiral, especially with the God's Knights attacking. The God Valley incident was a really interesting one because it's just like it was a culmination of many other things taking place, right? So like the God's Knights at the time wanting to have their hunt, or the Celestial Dragons wanting to have their hunting competition right there, the slaves wanting to revolt right there, but then also the Rocks Pirates planning an ambush on the Celestial Dragons right there, and then the Roger Pirates wanting to get something back from the Rocks Pirates right then. So it was a lot of things that had to come together for that to take place. And then that, like, the Roger Pirates getting involved got Garp and everyone involved. So Elbaf is a storyline that has almost no setup whatsoever. But so many things are happening across the story, across the ocean, that maybe the fight could come to Elbaf. Let me ask you guys this. So there's two versions of Elbaf. I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier in the stream. Do we think that the final battle of Elbaf has started? Or is it kind of going to be, this is kind of like the first big battle / potentially low point, God's Knights leave for a little bit, and then end of the arc, we're getting the God's Knights returning, and this time for the climax. Does that make sense? So, or is the final battle just in full sway, and from here on, we're in the Battle of Elbaf? What do you guys think? Has the final battle of Elbaf begun? No. This is... this is... I don't know how to phrase this in a short way. No, I guess I'll just say no, yes, no. Gosh, Panda, thanks for the 2. How are you sure Loki's a rebel hero and not a princess? You're right, we're not far enough in the storyline to say for sure what Loki's role is. But Loki does fit the archetype of a lot of the other rebel hero types in the story so far, particularly being a sort of outcast figure. One, being the strongest warrior of the land, so that tends to be the case. And then 2, being a sort of outcast figure that suffers from a negative reputation from the people of his land, that obscures a kinder heart underneath the surface. So just those 2 factors, and it's not like the Strats seem to be particularly endeared towards Loki just yet. I do think that we will get a sad backstory for Loki, much like we got, but that doesn't make them the princess, right? Like, Kyros had a sad backstory, but that doesn't make him the princess of the arc. Odin had a sad backstory, that doesn't make Odin the princess of the arc, right? So, like, the rebel hero figure can still have stuff that, like, makes us feel empathy, but ultimately the character that's really Oda's kind of portraying as sort of this helpless figure in need of the Straw Hat's assistance, that's traditionally the princess figure. I don't think Loki's that. It's possible Elbaf doesn't have that, because it feels like Elbaf's plot is moving very fast. Taya, thanks for the 5. The child abduction will end in failure. I wonder. I feel like... Oh, wait, I missed one right here. Sheriff Laffy, I'll get you in a second. Okay, so most people are on board that this is not the final battle of Elbaf. Okay, so then my personal feeling right now is that the structure of Elbaf is kind of like... again, low points, mid points are very good for stories. One Piece is usually phenomenal at setting these up. I think that this is not going to go super well for Elbaf and the Straw Hats. The island is already kind of in flames, right? The atmosphere is very dark and heavy at the moment. This is going to kind of set up the Gods Knights as villains and kind of set up who Loki is meant to be for the arc or whatever. I think from here, something will be lost, but the whole, like, everything's not necessarily going to go to shit. So maybe they're going to succeed in taking away some of the giant kids, or maybe the giant kids get away, but they steal one of the Strats instead. Something I think will be lost, or at the very least, like, the threat of the Gods Knight's return will be established. I think from then we get the middle section of the arc where we get a lot of the character writing build up, maybe training or power-ups or something like that before the Gods Knight's return, and I think that fits a lot with One Piece's general arc structure. So I think this is like the first bad incident that really happens, basically. Sheriff Laffy, thanks for the 2. How will the Astral Realm come to play? Oh, that's a great question. So I wonder why Loki wants to destroy Elbaf, and I really do wonder if it has something to do with something being up there in the Astral Realm. If there's another villain in Elbaf, that would just be kind of crazy. But the Astral Realm, Oda's so good at mysteries, because, like, the way he sets things up, it's just so clever in that the way he sets things up is kind of like he's got mysteries that are clearly at the forefront of the story. So, like, we want to figure out what's the deal with King Harold's death, right? Like, what's the deal with that, right? And then there's things that are littered in there that are kind of like soft mysteries that, like, we want to know about, but they're not pressing. Like, what's the deal with Gunk or whatever? And then he'll drop some stuff that seems like it's probably a really important mystery to solve, but it then goes unmentioned for a long enough time that you kind of forget, and so many other plot events happen that, like, when it's brought back into the story, it's actually like, oh shit, I totally forgot about that, even though that seemed like a big deal. I think the Heavens Realm, the Astral Realm is a really, really good example of that, in that it's like, when that was first revealed, that was, like, interesting. It was like, what the fuck? Why is there another realm above even the kingdom? What goes on up there? Are there gods up there? Like, what's the deal up there? And then so much other plot shit is introduced and so many other mysteries and question marks that we kind of just forget about that mystery, right? Like, what happened with Harold? Who's Colin's father, right? Like, who's this mystery figure, right? Like, there's so many other things that are planted that you just kind of lose track of that one other thing that was mentioned way back, even though it seemed like a big deal. Oda just does a good job of stacking and obscuring it so you forget. And then it'll come back into play much later to probably play a decently big role or decently big reveal in the arc. So I don't know. I don't have a good guess. Maybe it's something that we find out about after the Gods Knights leave. Yeah, so Taya said the child abduction will end in failure. Let me do a quick poll for that. Here we go. How successful will the Gods Knights be? How successful will the Gods Knights be here? They steal the children. They steal maybe like 1 to 2 kids. They take Straw Hat or other character or other main character. I'll just say they take a Straw Hat. They don't kidnap anyone. It's entirely possible they fail to kidnap anyone, but they just leave with the threat of the Gods Knights being established, which is like, this happened with just 4 of us, but we'll all come back in full force soon. But I don't know. I do feel like they'll have some success here. It's hard to say. Jaren's Rambo, thanks for the 2. What was the point of Luffy fighting Luchi again? Okay, so the point of Luffy fighting Luchi, I honestly think that it's just Luffy fighting Luchi. If you look at the flow of Egghead, just in general, you need some action in there for the Straw Hats partway through. We did get the Seraphim fight, but the tricky thing with the Seraphim fight was that it's too early in the story for Oda to have the Seraphim lose. So we're at a point in the story where actually, like, similar to the Gorosei, the Seraphim are being established in terms of fighting threats for later on in the final war against the world government. So this is supposed to be a preview and showcase for them. So you can't have the Seraphim actually lose or be defeated by the Straw Hats in Egghead Island. That's why ultimately their defeat was off screen, and it was revealed that the Straw Hats had to use bubble guns rather than actually just like knock them out or whatever. So it leaves the Seraphim still clearly being established as a problem, and a growing problem in that the Seraphim are still in their child forms and are nowhere near their full potential. So Oda needed some action partway through, but while the Seraphim do serve a good way to do that, they're not fights that we can see to their conclusion. The fight that was easiest was basically like give Luffy a mini boss for the arc. Like Oda often likes to give Luffy a sort of mini boss fight for the arc. Luchi just served that, and it also served as a way to kind of, I think it's a good little, like it or not, Oda does care about power scaling to some degree, like establishing growth, establishing how characters stack to one another, etc. So like Luffy taking out Luchi relatively easily. Then we get to see Zoro versus Luchi for good measure to get like another point of comparison. And so now in the future, Luchi will presumably get another matchup somewhere down the line against somebody. We will now also, like, Luchi now has basically kind of been used as a measuring stick a few times, so we get some decent idea of like what Luchi's supposed to be. So it serves a few purposes, but it's just like with Egghead Island, because it's an isolated island, it's hard to figure out like what's a character Luffy can fight early on. Having government agents show up to fight Luffy is the simplest way before the big guns like Kizaru and the Gorosei and everyone and the Buster Call show up, right? So that was just the easiest thing for Oda to do. And the other thing is also just like if you bring in some other CP0 agent that Luffy hasn't met before, it's not quite the same because like, yes, Luchi's a reused character, but at least Luchi's like still has some hype and impact and meaning for us as a reader. It's like, oh shit, Luchi's back. That's kind of cool, right? Yeah, he gets fodderized afterwards, but that would be more meaningful than just introducing a random new CP0 agent like fucking whoever the fuck, Guernica or whoever the fuck. It's like, oh, fucking unknown CP0 agent number 6, Guernica is here or something like that. It's like, what do we get out of seeing Luffy fight them? Nothing, right? At least seeing Luffy, if Luffy's going to defeat any CP0 agent, Luchi's the most interesting one at the end of the day, even if ultimately it's not that interesting. Does that make sense? I think Oda didn't have the best options for a Luffy fight right there, but he wanted something to add some action and an early fight in Egghead. How successful would the Gods Knights be here? So people say they steal maybe like 1 to 2 kids. Okay, so people do think a lot of people think, over 50% of people think that some children are going to be successfully kidnapped, just probably not all of them. 30% of people think that they don't kidnap anyone. Yeah, I think that, I think phenomenal writing by Oda that anything's up in the air right now. I think with the tone that's been established in this chapter, I would not be surprised if Oda goes the route of like the God's Knights actually getting some sort of win here. To some, not a win-win. They'll be fended off and sent home, I'm sure, but like succeed in some way to cause problems for Elbaf, and that could include taking a kid. Stephen Dyer, thanks for the 5. I think crew split up at the end of the arc. My thoughts are Morj in the second place. I don't know yet. Between 3 for me. So what's interesting is that, like, you got Fishman Island, which will likely be in need soon. Wano, which will likely be in need soon. If any Straw Hat is kidnapped and taken to Morj, I just think that that would be resolved by the end of the arc. The problem is that the Straw Hats need to go to Laugh Tale very, very soon. So I don't see them being split up again at the end of this arc. I could see it happening, though. I would just prefer them to remain together from here on out to the end of the story. Yeah, that'd just be my preference. We do know a lot of Straw Hat allies and like certain areas are going to be in need very, very soon. Colin getting kidnapped for sure. If Colin gets kidnapped, that'd be interesting, but I feel like Colin needs a Straw Hat to play off of because he needs to learn shit, you know? Like, if Colin's just by himself, he's not going to grow in any sort of way. If you pair Colin with, like, Usopp, maybe Colin can learn something about being a brave warrior. If you pair Colin with Luffy, maybe Colin can learn something. But I think as is, I don't know. Yeah, let's get the stream likes up to 250 real quick. The Mad Monk. Maybe Uruj is up there in Heaven Realm. But, like, in that case, is Heaven Realm normally just abandoned? I'm sure Uruj didn't just show up and they're like, oh, please, you're our god. Please go up to Heaven Realm. They can't put marks on the children. Yeah, I agree. How many God's Knights are there? I think there's about 9 from what we saw from the image that Oda drew, but, like, that doesn't, you know, the image was just silhouettes. Maybe there are 10. Maybe Oda didn't feel like drawing everything. It's hard to say. They'd have taken Colin. If they take Colin, then they've got to take a Straw Hat as well. Because just Colin alone and Morj, like, what's going to happen, right? He's not going to learn jack shit, right? I have a quick question, actually. So post time skip, One Piece has, like, it's just been interesting because Oda's written children in starring roles in pretty much every arc in the new world, which is kind of new. I guess not in Dressrosa unless I'm forgetting someone, but in, like, we had Mocha in Punk Hazard. Then no, I'm wrong. Whole Cake we didn't have anything either. Right? Really, we've had Momonosuke, Tama, Bonnie, Colin. I think that's it. I think that's pretty much it. Momonosuke, Tama, Bonnie, Colin, Mocha in Punk Hazard. I do feel like it became more frequent that Oda started writing, like, children as centerpieces to be inspired by the Straw Hats in post-time skip. So I wouldn't be surprised if Colin ends up being pretty important. Save the Heaven Realm, Mad Monkey Rouge. Nice Bleach reference. Oh, fuck, I fucking forgot about Kid. Imagine Kid showing up here. That would be cool. That would be really cool if Kid clutches up and shows up here. That would be a good way to redeem Kid. Rebecca's a child, really? Not by Japan standards. By Oda and Japan standards, like, Rebecca's as old as Vivi, right? And Shirahoshi, right? Like, she falls into same age as, like, Nami was in Arlong Park, basically, right? Talking about kids, you know? Mosa's Uruj. I don't think Uruj would be scared like that. Yeah, people need to stop spelling Colin as C-O as colon. I think it's just C-O-L-I-N. Let's just leave that. Also, Colin is 20, not really Kid. Colin is presented to us as a child, even as stupid as that is. I hope for a redemption arc for Kid, because he has been ass. I hope for a redemption arc for Kid. My thing with Kid is just that, like, he's just, he could have been used well, even if Oda wanted him to go down, like, in that fashion, he could have then been used better in the story. Like, I don't think you should have Big Mom versus Kid. Have Big Mom actually fight someone where, like, a character whose story arc is headed somewhere, because Big Mom's such a valuable and important character herself that she shouldn't be a throwaway fight. Right? Because if you're just going to have Kid immediately lose afterwards, it's just like, why even write that? Like, there's so much potential to a character, like, getting to fight and take down a Yonko, you know? So I believe that there's more to come for Kid. Wampa Wreckage, thanks for the 5. Straw Hat gets kidnapped, and Sanji, maybe Gaban too, go to Marijua for a Mr. Prince moment. All the way to Marijua, though? You know what's insane? If Kuma's mind is fixed, and let's fucking pray it isn't, then all of this is fucking possible now. No, man. If Kuma's mind is fixed, they're going to be teleporting strides left, right, and where the fuck they want. Please don't let that happen. Sheriff Laffy, thanks for the 5. Do you think Nami's search for treasure will lead to anything in Elbaf or have some significance? I think that there should be more important character stuff that comes for Nami than just treasure. So I think that should be fine. Big Mom returns and goes mothering mode to protect the children. It would be stupid, but it would also be the coolest use of mothering mode that you could possibly have, I'd say. But still stupid. But still the coolest use you could have. Kurakami Najimi says, can't wait for Kuma to come back and see the rage. It would mainly be rage for me. I think everyone else would just be like, you know what? This is really good. I'd be like, we just lost literally one of the best chapters in One Piece. Literally, 1102. That was the Kuma chapter, right? The best chapter in One Piece is now just a Pell chapter. If that happens. I don't want to talk about it. Why have a chapter called Kuma's Life if nothing is happening to Kuma's life? Why even call the chapter that? It doesn't make any sense. Anyway. Is the Strahd's main goal saving kids again? I don't know. The Strahd's goal right here is complicated because, like, the monster trio have to deal with Loki down there. I think the other Strahd's might get fucked up by the Gods Knights. And Renami says, Morj holding in a rant so bad, lol. It's not right to rant about things that haven't happened in the story. Because it's just like, then it's just like getting mad about things that aren't even a thing. You're getting mad about literally nothing, right? Like, and it just feels like overly negative. But I can't ignore the fact that Kuma's still around and they're talking about trying to fix him. And his fruit would really fucking come in handy right about now. So I'm just going to try and not talk about it. Archer Sapiens says Big Mom got launched to the heaven realm of Elbaf from the volcanic explosion in Wano. Can somebody confirm what was the last sighting we had of Kaido and Big Mom? Is it confirmed that they're still down there? Is there any sort of like guarantee that they're still down there? What was our last sighting? What was our last sighting of the delinquent duo? Regular artist says, I will kill Kuma if Oda cannot. Sheriff Laffy says, talk to us about the cover story, Morj. I could talk to you guys about the cover story. I think a lot of people have been writing off this cover story as boring, but generally cover stories are like this, right? Like, Oda saves the good shit for the end, right? If I were to go just down the list of, like, One Piece cover stories, if I were to just look at cover stories, right? I feel like they're generally not exciting till towards the end. So, like, usually it's just stuff happening. Like, Buggy's Crew Adventure, nothing really there. like towards the end he teams up with Alvida, so that's the twist. Kobe Hamapo, it's like random shit, but then team up, like Garp is like they got training under Garp at the end. Django, I don't fucking remember if anything. Hachan Sea Floor, I don't think there was anything unless I'm forgetting something. Wapple, it's just whatever. Ace, it's like a fun little backstory. Or not backstory, just side story that's happening. I think a lot depends on how much you like the character, because like people loved Ace, so having a side story, just getting to see more Ace in some context, like this side story, is fun regardless if, and like he gets a good clue for Blackbeard towards the end. So that's fun to see regardless if anything major is happening or not. So that's something. Gedatsu, it's just a silly, fun backstory. Baroque Works, it's interesting, right? It sets us up for Crocodile, etc., and Impel Down. I think NL was the really big one. I wonder if at the time people even understood how big NL's one was. CP9's independent. Like, look, at the end of the day, in the past, there was a long stretch of time where, like, backstories or, like, cover stories were pretty simple and straightforward. Like, it's just covering shit that's happening on the side and, like, catching up with what other characters are doing post-fact. You know, like, CP9 could have been defeated and we just never find out what happens to them again. It's just fun to find out that this is how they, like, made do after all of that. Straw Hat Separation is probably the most important cover story that we've ever had. No, I guess NL's is technically the most important, but Straw Hats is the first one where, like, every single page of the cover story was like, oh shit, this is, like, main story shit, because the Straw Hats are main characters, right? So every single page or chapter was really big. From the Decks of the World, that's also really exciting because we're sweeping through the world. Carabo's, again, boring random cover story, but like a cool connection at the end with X Drake showing up and taking Carabo, and like the reveal of X Drake being associated with Kaido, right? Like Jinbei, we end with it like boring shit, but we end with a poneglyph, right? Decks of the World, Stride Grand Fleet, I thought was a fun one from start to finish. Capone Beiges is the only cover story I can think of that was just ass from start to finish in recent times. No interesting connection at the end. And Capone Beiges is probably the worst cover story because it brought Pound back to life, which did not need to happen. It hurt the story. Germa 66. Again, like a cover story most people didn't enjoy till the end when you're getting like Aokiji and that shit. Aokiji and Van Augur, right? So Yamato, I'd say the same thing. Like, we know Wano's a very, very important island. I would argue that, like, already what's happening in the Yamato cover story is a little bit better than your standard cover story. Like, you go a few cover stories back, and it's just Jinbei traveling the seas with, like, a fucking, like, lost cat or something like that. At least in the Yamato cover story, we're dealing with Tobi Roppo and, like, the remnants of the Beast Pirates and some action. So it's not... Although it's already been a lot of chapters. It's been 26 chapters. I believe that Yamato's cover story... No, because some of them are really long. Like, Capone Beiges was 37 chapters. Yeah, so I would say that the Yamato cover story it's still in the phase where there's nothing big to expect, really, for it just yet. Like, there's nothing that should have really happened. T, thanks for the 5. Speaking of rage and mothering mode, Nami is going to go ballistic when she sees the children in danger. Great character moments incoming. Yeah, no one tell Nami that the kids are in their fucking 20s. I think that's the key. But yeah, Nami, she could have, like, maybe we get to see Zeus in action. Although lightning is a problem in Elbaf, so like, maybe Nami shouldn't use Zeus. I think it'll be interesting. I think it'll be interesting. Yeah, I think that there'll be... I think the Yamato cover story, like, by cover story standards, is fine in terms of, like, how interesting it is so far. Like, I think it's solid. I think it's better than shit like Jinbei's cover story or Capone Beige's cover story, chapter to chapter. And I wouldn't be surprised if it concludes with some juicy stuff. Because all cover story... Not most cover... It is rare that a cover story doesn't conclude with something juicy for the main story, right? But Oda just saves that for the end. I would argue that Capone Beiges is the first one that really didn't do that in a long time. So I think just be patient. And you guys know I hate Yamato, but like, if like that's my stand. I'm just being like real about it. Like, there's nothing bad about this so far. It's just, it is what it is. Tiptoe2910, thanks a lot. Usopp versus Perona. Already depressed, so it doesn't work. Usopp versus Nightmare Fruit. Already in a nightmare, so it doesn't work. Is this going to be the Usopp arc? I definitely think it's possible that we could get another scenario where it's like, I'm going to bring your biggest fear to life, is what Usopp's up against. And Usopp's response is just like, the entire world is already my biggest fear. Like, I'm already scared of all of this shit. Like, you don't need to... Because everything that... Like, killing him brings, like, things that aren't real but are in people's imaginations to life, right? Like those type of nightmare things. But with Usopp, the whole world is already his nightmare, so I definitely could see that being the case. So I think that'd be really funny. Akash Panda, thanks to 2. Loki funny moment. Kids being scared of Luffy. Yeah, shit. Nah, never mind. I'm like, what if like another version of Luffy manifests right there? That'd be pretty funny. I do think that was a funny moment. I've just been really fucking liking Elbaf so far. It's just been... I just feel like reading Elbaf, it's kind of just like... It makes me feel like not insane for having wanted this in recent One Piece arcs, which is just like everything that I care for, we've been getting. We've been getting like a smaller cast of characters, right? Smaller cast of characters. We've been getting to revisit like past Straw Hat character dynamics and just getting to see them interact, right? We already got some Romance Dawn Trio time. We got some East Blue 5 time. We even got some like Usopp Nami time just to begin the arc and everything. Like we've just been getting, we got a Luffy Zoro chapter. We've just been getting just focused interactions among the Straw Hats. We've been getting setups for the Straw Hats to have character storylines in this arc, like Robin Saul, Frankie Adam Tree, Usopp with this new Nightmare Fruit situation, right? And then we finally getting like significant tension, right? Significant tension in the sense of like this chapter legitimately shook up the Straw Hats. You see Robin and Chopper and them freaking out about what's happening up above. You see the Monster Trio legitimately like kind of taken aback by everything that's happening right down below with Loki. They didn't have these expressions at any point in Egghead that I can recall, or this sense of like foreboding. This is good shit. Like it's just, it kind of makes me feel like what the fuck? Like, why couldn't we just have had this in previous storylines? I don't know. This is all just in the first 16 chapters of Elbaf. I like that Oda's not going overboard with too many side characters, right? Like, we have a good number of side characters, but it doesn't feel like any of them are, like, the story's pivoting to just focus on them. The only side character that's really dominating the story is one, and that's Loki, and that's a character that we are getting sufficient focus and, like, build up towards, like, why he is very interesting, right? I guess Scopper Gaban, another character that we find very, very interesting, right? It's not just like Oda's throwing in side character after side character after side character that we now have to spend time learning about, you know? Yeah, let me take a look at 1141 again. I'm curious about the Zoro-Luffy interaction again. Don't use the key yet. The cuffs are made, blah, blah, blah. Chill out, Luffy, not yet. If that ore-sized giant, super giant starts raising hell, it's going to be a major problem even for Elbaf. He died. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I think there might be potential here even for some, like, intra-crew conflict with Luffy doing explicitly what Zoro said was not a good idea to do. I don't know. I'm excited for that. Let's wait and see. All right, everybody. I might answer one more question, but I mentioned before this that my throat is not feeling the best. I have a bit of a cold right now. Yeah, and we've been streaming for a couple hours, so I think this might be a good point to call it. I'm going to answer one more question. Let me just take a quick look. Shoot, what happened just here? Sorry, 1 second. Stream chat glitched out for me for a second. It's obvious they're below Yonko level. Who are you guys talking about? You guys talking about the Gods Knights? I don't think the Gods Knights are Yonko level. Oh, are you talking about the Admirals? I'm not gonna get into any of this. How are you feeling about Loki right now, though? I think that's one more question. So I ask this every stream. Not every stream, but I think that's kind of want to cap this with here. Because the big thing that I think people aren't talking enough about with Loki is that, like, the reveal that the reveal that his hammer has a fruit, and not just a fruit, but an extremely powerful fruit. Like Loki, that lightning blast that he just summoned, is bigger than anything that Enel can do without Maxim that we've seen in the story. Like, Enel could shoot lightning and everything like that, but not lightning on that scale outside of using Maxim. I think maybe his biggest attack, like which is God's Judgment, I guess was fairly big. That could leave craters, but like that's like this was like a lightning blast that like was like considering how huge the Elbaf island is, the fact that it carved through the entire island, like that's pretty much above even what Enel can do lightning wise without Maxim. Maxim is when he was able to ramp shit up. So does this like Loki? I think for me, his potential in terms of strength just ratcheted up because it's kind of like now it's a Blackbeard scenario where he has two fruits that are likely top tier fruits, if that makes sense. Because on the one hand, he's got, as we know, some sort of legendary fruit, the Elbaf royal family fruit that's been built up as being extremely powerful and makes him believe that he's the sun god. So he's got that. And then he's also got this crazy powerful weapon. So he's kind of like Blackbeard in that he's dual wielding two extremely powerful fruits. And then on top of that, his base, like we were all just talking that even from his base level of like aura, hockey, physical stats, etc., the impression that that's giving, that all also seems likely top tier or like verging on top tier. So the only thing we really know about Loki is that he's below Shanks, but that doesn't really tell us that much because Shanks is very, very high. Like nobody knows where exactly Shanks is supposed to rank in the grand scheme of things. Like you can argue Shanks versus Kaido, Shanks versus blah blah blah. This chapter did change things for me because it's just like, if before this I was already like, yeah, Loki might be like Admiral-ish, maybe light Yonko or whatever, it's like, okay, but now on top of all that, he's got, his weapon is one of the most powerful weapons. Like, he has a weapon that's probably one of the most powerful fruits in the story, on top of his own devil fruit that he hasn't debuted. I think that's kind of crazy. His hammer doesn't have a fruit? Well, then how is his hammer doing that? Wait, you guys don't think his hammer has a fruit? He's able to call lightning with his hammer. Okay, well, whatever the hammer is, fine. It doesn't have to be a fruit. You guys get what I'm saying. Like, forget it. Fine. It's irrelevant. The point is that he's got, like, a broken-ass additional ability. That's all I'm saying. Like, if it's a fruit or not a fruit, it literally doesn't matter at the end of the day, right? I'm just saying the fact that he has the hammer, right? How does that change things for you at all? Special hammer? Sure. I mean, my immediate assumption is that it's a fruit. If it's not a fruit, it's not relevant, right? Like, it's just, you guys are missing the point, which is he's got his own personal base stats, which already seem like, in terms of presentation, it seems like Yonko-esque. Like, we all talked about how he had a similar introduction to Kaido, right? So in terms of just, like, size, he's ore-sized with crazy hockey is what's implied from Luffy's initial perception of him. And then, obviously, the just intimidation factor, etc. He also has some insanely powerful Mythical Zoan that we have yet to see. And then he's got this hammer that is basically, let's just say it's basically can do what Enel's fruit can do, right? So what do you guys feel? How strong is Loki? Let's see. How strong is Loki? I'm just gonna use Kaido Big Mom level as a benchmark. And then I'll say Green Bull level. How about that? That's a nice little gradation. I didn't say admiral level because then people will get upset about like, well, what about Akainu? What about this? What about that? You know? Okay, so 70% of people just about think that Loki is Kaido and Big Mom level. That's interesting because last chapter when Loki got up, I ran this poll and I think a good percentage of people said Kaido Big Mom level, but it wasn't this I don't think it was the majority. It might have been 50% or maybe 40% or something like that. Now we've got a solid majority saying Loki is Kaido and Big Mom level. Interesting. Interesting. All right, everybody. We are going to call it here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This was a fucking phenomenal chapter. Let's get one more stream like up because we're at 249. But we are gonna call it here. Yeah, this was a phenomenal fucking chapter. I really, really fucking enjoyed it. I'm just so fucking excited for Elbaf. Like, it's been giving me everything I wanted for a One Piece arc for some time from the very beginning. And then this chapter just gave a phenomenal launch to its like primary conflict and actually setting a tone and atmosphere that feels serious, tense, and gives the Strides legitimately something to worry about. That is perfect shit for like actual good character writing for them down the line. All right, everybody, we're going to call it here. Thank you all for tuning in. And yeah, I will talk to you all later.